I'm talking to my friend Mychal Denzel Smith from The Nation magazine, thenation.com. Well, so I actually want to move on to another column you recently wrote, and it's the new year. So happy New Year, Michael, by the way. Hope
Happy
you
New
had a good
Year.
one. Yeah. So you actually, you wrote about three ways to fight racism in 2014. So yeah, like how do we go about this? What are three ways to fight racism? I'll just let you go down there. What should we do to fight racism in
Yeah, so
2014?
I'm just setting a set of goals for myself because I mean
Mm.
it's daunting when you look at it. It's like holy, like there's so much that needs to be addressed. I'm only one person. I can only do so much. What can I actually legitimately do to help in
Hmm.
this fight, right? So I set three goals for myself to do this year, and the first is reclaiming the definition of racism, right? So it has been so distorted in our discourse in the United States around what racism actually constitutes. We get so caught up in the sort of vitriolic racism of the Duck Dynasty guy, right?
Hmm.
And we miss the institutional. Like racism is a system. It is racism is built through government policy and is maintained through the policies that we enact today. It is the institutional denial of access to resources for certain groups of people to the benefit of another group, which in this instance is white people, right? Those classified
Yeah.
as white.
Yeah.
Uh, I mean, that's what we're actually fighting. Like, I think the problem is that we get bogged down in the rhetoric of racism. So it's oh, this person said the N word, they're racist. So we just want to tell them they're a bad person and go on with our day. But that's not. I mean, yeah, it's bad that they would go and call someone a slur, but that doesn't have the same effect as day-to-day institutional, like in our core racist structure that America is built on. So we need to reclaim that, and we need to make sure that we know what we're fighting. We're not just fighting the racist boogeyman. Like, we're not just fighting, guys in white hoods. Like, the guys in white hoods were bad because they were violently enforcing the racist structure that was cute. Like you know what I mean? Like, they were there at the polls making sure that black people didn't vote. Like, that was, they were putting terror into the hearts of black people in order to make sure that they wouldn't participate in society. Like, that's what made the KKK so bad, right? It's not just that they hated black people. Like, I'm not so concerned with the personal hatred so much as I am the institutions, the structures that perpetuate racism. So that's one. Second is respectability politics, which is this idea essentially that in order to overcome racism, you simply have to be better. You have to comport yourself to the rules of the game and just make sure that you personally succeed and that you won't feel the effects of racism. If you just keep your head down and you work hard, you will overcome these things. And sure, we have examples of people that have worked hard and overcome, so to speak, their situations and have fought back against a racist system and succeeded in the face of that racist system. But they succeeded in the face of it, right? They succeeded despite the fact that it still exists. But
It
that's
doesn't
not the,
just because they succeeded doesn't mean that that the problem isn't there. Just because
right.
and just because we have these few examples of people who overcame it doesn't mean that there aren't more that people who worked just as hard as, say, a white counterpart wouldn't be as far or farther because of the structural problem that exists.
Exactly. And my problem with it is it puts the onus on the people suffering from that oppression to
Mm-hmm.
then fix it, right? So instead of putting the onus on the people benefiting from that system to end that system, you're saying, well, it's just going to be that way. Just do what you have to do and overcome it. It's like, no, that betrays the ideas of freedom, equality, and justice that we have we're supposed to operate on in the United States, right? Like that's our credo. We're supposed to operate on those ideas, but we're not if we're just telling people, well, it's just on you. And then we start blaming people for their own oppression, right? So we tell kids that, we tell black kids that get shot down in the street, well, if you just pulled your pants up and nobody thought you were a thug, then you wouldn't have this problem. Like, that's just not, that's not productive.
If you didn't go to get Skittles and stuff, you wouldn't have gotten shot.
Exactly.
If you didn't if you didn't go walking in a neighborhood at night, you wouldn't have been murdered by a maniac.
It's somehow about your personal behavior that you that you are suffering from racism. Like, that's just not the case. Like that, and so in putting it into respectability politics and making sure that no longer has currency in our public discourse. And the last thing for me, because I think this is probably the most pressing and most damaging racial justice issue that we currently face in the United States, is mass incarceration, and making sure that it's not just a discussion that we have in progressive circles, right? That we make sure that every politician running in 2014, 2016, and beyond has to say the words mass incarceration. They have to say the words prison industrial complex, and they have to have a plan for ending it, because it simply can't stand anymore. I mean, we're talking about a country that at any given moment, 2.3 million people are in our prisons and jails. But that's just that number. We're talking about more than 10 million people coming in and out of prisons and jails throughout a year, and disproportionately Black and Latino. And we're ruining lives through this. I mean, we're talking about people that get out and they can't get jobs. Hard time getting. I mean, they're shut out of public funding for housing and food stamps and all of this. They have to pay restitution. Like, if they get a job, they have to pay back court costs and all of this stuff out of their paycheck. I mean, we've set it. They can't vote for the most part. Usually a permanent basis. I mean, we set it up so that and a lot of these crimes are nonviolent, in my mind, non-serious crimes. I mean, the biggest driver of incarceration has been the war on drugs. Again, a racist war on drugs that has not addressed drug use in the country. That was never meant to address that. I mean, it's not the scourge that we want to pretend that it is. Everyone keep locking people up and ruining their lives. And for what? I mean, we're talking about corporations now profiting off of us locking people up, so that we have to then continue to lock them up and create new laws as crime goes down, create new laws to ensure that these companies will always have people to fill the beds in their prisons. And this just cannot stand. So the other thing, like the last point that I wanted to accomplish this year, is to be sure that we pressure every politician that is running for election, re-election, or thinking about running, contemplating running, getting an exploratory committee. They have to say the words mass incarceration in their platform. They have to address that issue.